year is 1986, and I got to do something here I can't believe. I got to give you your dream shot. I'm putting you up against the best. You characters are going to Top Gun. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Random Rewatch. This is Mike, and I feel the need for speed. We are doing Tony Scott's 1986 film Top Gun as a tribute to the late, great Val Kilmer, who we lost a few days ago. So this is a movie that almost uniquely defines the 1980s. I mean, when people think about the 1980s, like one of the first thoughts that they're going to come up with is Top Gun, because this movie was such a cultural phenomenon throughout its run in the theaters on VHS and then on TV and then in movies and spoofs of it, video games of it, sequels to it, other films that try to be like it. So this film came out in May of 1986. There was another movie that came out in January called Iron Eagle, which was kind of a similar thing in that it was dealt with fighter jets and a young pilot, but it was also very much a different thing. But these two films are a lot of times put together in terms of like, oh, this is what the movies were like in 1986, and this was kind of the thing. It was like kind of like an Armageddon Deep Impact thing. This is by far the superior film out of the two of them, without a doubt. So I want to go through a little bit of pre-production so we can kind of jump right into the movie, because there's a lot going on with this movie. I pulled a lot of clips. I don't know if I'm going to get to them all, but this may wind up being one of the longer episodes because there's a lot to unpack with this film. So the origin of this film was that it was inspired by an article in California Magazine in 1983 called Top Guns, written by someone named Ued Yane, and it was basically about pilots at Naval Air Station Miramar, naval pilots, and it had a lot of aerial photography, pictures of planes and stuff like that. And Jerry Bruckheimer, Dom Simpson, who were two powerhouse producers, kind of early in their career at this point. We talked about them a little bit with Crimson Tide because they had done Crimson Tide together. It was one of the last movies they did together before Don Simpson died in 1996. But this was them right in their wheelhouse, basically almost coming out of the gate. You know, they had worked on American Gigolo together, Thief of Hearts, and Beverly Hills Cop. But this was kind of really their big, I mean, Beverly Hills Cop was big, but this was bigger. But this really, between those two films, this really announced them to the world as serious producers, because they've had now a string of really 3 big hits. Their careers would just take off. So they tried to hire some writers to put together a screenplay for this. They wound up hiring Jack Epps Jr. and Jim Cash to write a draft of it. Epps wound up going to Miramar and sitting in on some unclassified briefings and managed to finagle a check ride in an F-14, or maybe more than one ride, and so got a real feel for like who these guys were, what their experience was, what it was like to be at this school, and what it was like to be a part of one of these squadrons and what these naval aviators were really like. And that informed his work in the draft. So this movie is based on a program that existed at the time called Navy Fighter Weapons School. The program has been since developed into the Navy Strike Fighter Tactics Instructor Program. And the basic gist of what Top Gun is they take aviators out of the fleet, bring them to the school, they teach them advanced fighter tactics with the idea that they will now go back out into the fleet and they will teach the pilots out in the fleet. So they're not really creating hotshot pilots as much as they're creating instructors. So that school was at Naval Air Station Miramar until 1996 when Miramar was handed over to the Marine Corps, and now that function is done out at the Naval Air Station in Fallon, Nevada. Just a little history for you there. The first draft apparently looks nothing like the final film. Didn't even really impress Simpson and Bruckheimer, but it was a starting point, and over time they developed the script. They did get the assistance of the Navy. They had to change a couple of things in order to get the Navy on board. They went through a pretty decent list of guys to possibly direct this film. David Cronenberg, John Carpenter were both approached to direct the film. Both of them said no. The reason that they went to Tony Scott was he had filmed a commercial for Saab where a Saab 900 races a Swedish fighter jet, and it was very stylistic, and it was very much looking like the kind of idea that they wanted for the visual aspect of the film. And so they brought Tony Scott in. Tony Scott, of course, Ridley Scott's brother, who at that point had really not done much of anything other than TV commercials and some smaller films. The other big film that he had done was a film called The Hunger, which was a vampire movie in 1983. The initial thought for a lead in this film was Matthew Modine, who was mainly known at that point for Vision Quest. He had just done Vision Quest, done a couple of smaller films. He turned the film down because he did not like the kind of what he felt to be the jingoistic attitude of the film, that it kind of highlighted war and battle as a good thing, and instead he went with Stanley Kubrick to do Full Metal Jacket. They went after Tom Cruise. They had seen him in Risky Business and they liked him. He initially did not want to do the film, but he was, at the time, he was in the UK filming Legend with Ridley Scott, and Tony called Ridley, and Ridley talked to Tom and talked Tom into taking the meeting, and Tom wound up taking the film. This is the third Tom Cruise movie that we've done, so I don't think I need to dive too deeply into him. Needless to say, this is really, if any film cemented him as a major Hollywood star, it was this. There were other people that they had looked at. They had looked at Emilio Estevez. They had looked at Charlie Sheen, Rob Lowe, Patrick Swayze, Sean Penn, Ralph Macchio, Michael J. Fox. But Tom Cruise was really who they wanted, and that's who they wound up getting. Kelly McGillis, on the other hand, was coming off Witness, which was a huge film. They had looked at Demi Moore. They had looked at Julianne Phillips. They had looked at Brooke Shields. But Kelly McGillis was kind of who they were really focused on, and that's who they wound up casting in the movie as far as Charlie goes. And we'll talk about that character a little more when we get to her. So I think that's about enough of the pre-production. Let's get into Top Gun. So right off the top, you start to hear the opening strains, the bass line of the Top Gun anthem by Harold Faltermeyer. Faltermeyer is a German composer. He started his career as a record producer and was brought to Hollywood by his mentor, Giorgio Moroder, to work on Midnight Express. He first worked with Simpson and Bruckheimer doing the soundtrack for Beverly Hills Cop in 1984. And he then did the soundtrack for Fletch. This piece he works on with Steve Stevens, who is the guitar player for Billy Idol at this point. Moroder actually worked with Faltermeyer on the soundtrack. He wrote a couple of the songs, including Danger Zone and Take My Breath Away. along with Tom Whitlock, who did the lyrics for those songs. And then they kind of had like auditions or they put these songs out to see who would want to sing them as far as these songs go. Danger Zone, believe it or not, was originally supposed to be Toto, which that's interesting. We just hear Bobby Kimball belting out Danger Zone. There was some kind of legal issue between Simpson and Bruckheimer and Toto that was never really explained, but was the reason that they didn't pick up on it. They offered it to Bryan Adams. He turned it down. They offered it to REO Speedwagon. They turned it down because they wanted to add some of their own music, and that wasn't going to happen. Corey Hart was offered the song, and he turned it down because, again, like REO Speedwagon, he would rather do his own stuff. And so they turned to 80s standby Kenny Loggins. Kenny Loggins has been called the king of soundtracks because he's appeared on so many of them. Did a couple of songs for Caddyshack in 1982, I'm All Right, and Mr. Knight. He did 2 songs on this movie. He did Danger Zone, obviously, and Playing with the Boys. He did a song for Caddyshack 2. He did music for Footloose, obviously. He did a couple of songs on Footloose. You know, the guy was just well known, and so he was a easy guy to turn to, and it was like, yeah, I'll sing your song for you, no problem. The other interesting could have been is Take My Breath Away, which won an Oscar. That film was originally offered to the Motels, and they turned it down, and so it wound up going to Berlin, and, you know, Terry Nunn's vocals are absolutely incredible on it. So anyway, so we got the beginnings of the Top Gun anthem. We don't get the whole thing. We actually don't get the whole thing until the end in the film. And we get a couple of title cards, and then we get this card that talks about fighter weapons school. And it says on March 3rd, 1969, the United States Navy established an elite school for the top 1% of its pilots. It talks about how it was aerial combat was a lost art, and they wanted to ensure that tradition went forward. And then it ends by saying, today the Navy calls it Fighter Weapons School, the Flyers call it, and then it goes to another card and it says Top Gun. We wound up with some really beautiful shots of an aircraft carrier. This is the USS Enterprise. As the legend has it, they were filming on the deck and the ship changed course. And Tony Scott went to the captain and said, hey, I need some more. I need that light to be the way that it was. Can you turn the ship back? And the captain told him that it would cost $12,000 to turn the ship. And so Tony Scott wrote him a check. And the captain turned the ship, and they got 15 more minutes of the light that they needed to shoot. But this is just an incredible sequence. And I know this kind of thing, I mean, if you're like used to seeing Tony Scott films or Michael Bay films, like these kind of shots are very common. In 1986, we hadn't seen anything like that. The cinematographer here is Jeffrey Kimball. This is only his second feature. He had done a documentary and then one feature, The Legend of Billie Jean, and then he does 3 films in a row with Tony Scott. He does Top Gun, he does Beverly Hills Cop 2, he does Revenge. He would go on, he would also work with Tony Scott on True Romance. He would work with John Woo on Mission Impossible 2 and Wind Talkers. He did Star Trek Nemesis. He did Paycheck. He did Glory Road. He did Four Christmases. The Expendables with Sylvester Stallone. The guy's had quite a career, but this was, you know, this Tony Scott, Jeff Kimball combination. You know, we see it in Top Gun, this style of lighting, this way of moving the camera. Nobody moves a camera like Tony Scott does. And the way that Kimball shoots and lights this is just really incredible. And then we see it again the following year in Beverly Hills Cop 2. Like, these guys really had this kind of language and this kind of synergy that was really all their own. And other directors have been trying to copy it for the last 40 years. So then we have this segue from kind of the slow-moving Top Gun anthem into this more rock and roll song. And this is Danger Zone. This is Kenny Loggins. This is a huge hit. And this really propelled the soundtrack to be one of the best-selling movie soundtracks of all time. It's like 9 times platinum back when people bought albums. So we find out that we're in the Indian Ocean, and we see our CAG, the Carrier Air Group Command. And this is Commander Tom Jardian, call sign Stinger, who is played by James Tolkan. Tolkien at this point is well known to people as being Mr. Strickland in Back to the Future, at which he would continue to play. He would go on to be in Masters of the Universe, Dick Tracy, Problem Child 2. Like, if you need a grumpy guy, Tolkien is your guy. He is super sweaty. He's smoking a cigar. Everybody on this carrier is sweaty. I guess the USS Enterprise didn't have air conditioners in the 1980s. So he asks his controller, who's up? You know, because there's apparently something going on.
Who's up there? Cougar and Merlin and Maverick and Goose.
Great. Maverick and Goose.
Talk to me, Goose.
Roger, I got him. Contact 20 left at 30 miles, 900 knots closure.
Cougar, you hear that?
Roger. Merlin, you got him?
Roger, I've got radar contact.
And we find out about Goose and Maverick. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Cruise Mapother IV. Tom Cruise here in the plane with Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, at this point, was mainly known for Revenge of the Nerds, which he did in 1984. He actually kind of got his start doing small roles in films like Fast Times and Ridgemont High, Heart Like a Wheel. But Revenge of the Nerds was really his first kind of big film where he got really kind of a featured role. And then in 1985, he was a lead in a film called Gotcha with Linda Fiorentino, kind of a spy comedy thing. I think Anthony Edwards is absolutely fantastic in this. I love Goose. I just love his kind of off the cuff, seemingly not taking things seriously. He's just a ball to watch. So we have an interaction with some unspecified black planes with a red star on them. Are they Soviet? Maybe they're Soviet. Maybe they're Russian. Maybe they're somebody else. We don't really know who they are. I guess for the they didn't want to either piss anybody off, or it doesn't really matter for the purposes of the story. But they're kind of messing with the American pilots. There's another plane up there with Cougar and Merlin. Merlin, played by future Academy Award winner Tim Robbins in one of his early roles. Cougar, played by John Stockwell, who's probably as well known as a director as he is an actor. So they're asking if they can fire.
This is Ghost Rider 117. This bogey's all over me. He's got missile lock on me. Do I have permission to fire?
Do not fire until fired upon.
Goose, there they are, right below us.
The MiG's in perfect firing position. He's right on Cougar's tail.
No way, Goose. He'd have fired by now. He's just trying to piss us off.
Maverick, get down here and get...
And we find out that, no, they can't. So Maverick decides he's just going to mess around with the MiG pilots, and they do this thing where they flip upside down over him, and they take a photo, and they flip him off. Cougar's kind of messed up because of what happened, and Merlin is trying to talk him down and trying to get him to where he can calm down by telling him, look, we're running low on fuel. We need to get back.
Cougar, we're running low on gas. We got to get out of here. Cougar. We're on vapor, Cougar. Let's do it. Cougar, come on, Cougar.
He's having a hard time. Maverick and Goose, meanwhile, are on the way back. They're almost ready to land. They hear that there's trouble on the radio. Maverick aborts his landing, goes back to get Cougar. And this is a great moment for Maverick where he comes down and he's just like, look, just stay on my wing. I'm going to walk you. I'm going to take you all the way down.
Any of you boys seen an aircraft carrier around here?
Man, if we get a little problem up here, that MiG really screwed him up. I don't think he can make it back.
You're okay, Cougar. Just stay on my wing. I'll take you all the way in. Just stay with me.
And Cougar is able to land the plane. Now we cut to Cougar with Stinger, and Cougar is resigning. He's handing in his wings. He can't take it anymore. He doesn't want to risk his life. And Stinger now calls in Goose and Maverick and gives them a pretty epic
Maverick,
chewing
you just
out.
did an incredibly brave thing. What you should have done was land your plane. You don't own that plane, the taxpayers do. Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash. You've been busted. You lost your qualifications as section leader 3 times. Put in hack twice by me. With a history of high-speed passes over 5 air-controlled towers and 1 admiral's daughter. Penny Benjamin. And you're lucky to be here.
Thank you, sir.
And then there's this line in there that is just kind of a seed that he's planting where Stinger tells him, he's like, you know, you got to face it. Your family name ain't the best in the
Your
Navy.
family name ain't the best in the Navy. You need to be doing it better and cleaner than the other guy. Now, what is it with you?
Just want to serve my country, be the best fighter pilot in the Navy, sir.
Don't screw around with me, Maverick.
But they don't pick up that thread. They just kind of leave that there. So you're kind of like, well, what's going on with Maverick's family? What's the deal there? But they don't elaborate on that at this point. And so Stinger is like, I want to drum you out of the Navy, and, you know, I want to bust you, but I can't because I have this other problem. I need to send some guys to Top Gun. I got to send guys to Miramar. And Cougar resigned. Cougar was number 1. Cougar handed in his wings. Now you guys are number 1.
Instinctive pilot. Maybe too good. I'd like to bust your butt, but I can't. I got another problem here. I got to send somebody from this squadron to Miramar. I got to do something here. I still can't believe it. I got to give you your dream shot. I'm going to send you up against the best. You 2 characters are going to Top Gun.
And so now we have our inciting incident, and Maverick and Goose are off to Southern California. So we get a shot of Tom Cruise driving his motorcycle down next to a fighter plane because, of course, we do. Tom Cruise either got to be running or he's got to be riding a motorcycle, or ideally he's running and then riding a motorcycle. Some combination of those have to happen in a Tom Cruise movie. No running in this one, so we just have motorcycle stuff. So we get into the briefing room, kind of the introduction briefing, and we meet Commander Heatherly, call sign Jester. This is played by the great Michael Ironsides. Michael Ironside, just a machine. This guy is in everything. Probably at this point, he's best known for Scanners. But he would go on to do, you know, Starship Troopers, Total Recall, and just everything between TV, movies. This guy's got, as of the recording of this, he's got 276 acting credits on his IMDb. He's just a workhorse. And he's just, you know, you need that guy, get Ironside, because he could play all kinds of stuff. There's so much talent in this movie. It's really crazy. So Jester hands us off to the Top Gun commander, Commander Mike Metcalf, call sign Viper, played by Tom Skerritt. We just saw Tom Skerritt a couple episodes ago when we did Alien. I think the first thing I saw him in was MASH, Robert Altman's MASH, but another guy who's just been in a ton of stuff, just continues to work. 172 acting credits on his IMDb, and he just brings his A game every single time. So, you know, Viper gives his little speech about what it means to be a Top Gun.
I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our commanding officer at Top Gun. Very first man to win the Top Gun trophy. You will not find a finer fighter pilot anywhere in the world. Commander Mike Metcalf, call sign Viper.
Gentlemen, you are the top 1% of all naval aviators. The elite. Best of the best. We'll make you better.
So we get a basic breakdown of what it's going to be. 2 hops a day. how long the program is going to be, Top Gun trophy, points competition. By the way, fast fact, there is no such thing as a Top Gun trophy. These guys are not out there. This is not a competition. This is team building. The idea is to bring these guys together. They don't want to pit them against one another. So the Top Gun trophy, the idea that there's a competition, that is just a complete invention of the movie for dramatic purposes. So anyway, we get to the obligatory bar scene where all the aviators are there in their dress whites, very officer and a gentleman type thing. And probably, if I remember, somebody says the obligatory target-rich environment line. And we meet some of the other aviators, including Iceman. Goose is talking about Iceman. He flies as cold as ice. You see him, he's just kind of standing there with his sunglasses on inside the bar at night, drinking ice water. This is Lieutenant Tom Kazansky, call sign Iceman.
Congratulations on Top Gun.
Thank you.
Sorry to hear about Cougar. He and I were like brothers in flight school. He was a good man.
Still is a good man.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Thought so.
Say, you need any help?
With what?
You figured it out yet?
What's that?
Who's the best pilot?
No, I think I can figure that one out on my own.
I heard that about you. You like to work alone.
His Rio is Slider, played by Rick Rossovich. Rick Rossovich been in a bunch of stuff. Honestly, the only thing I really remember him in is Terminator. But it's pretty clear that Iceman and Maverick have kind of an instant dislike for each other. Iceman and Slider know Goose. I guess they all went to flight school together. You see some of the other pilots around. And then they start talking about, because it's the 1980s, they start talking about this bet that they're going to have between Goose and Maverick on how successful Maverick is going to be with somebody.
The bet is $20. $20. Right. You have to have carnal knowledge of a lady this time. On the premises.
On the premises.
Come on, Mav. Bet's a bet.
I don't know. It just doesn't seem fair. For you, I mean. But, she's lost that love and feeling.
She's like... No, she hasn't.
Yes, she has.
She has not lost that love.
Goose, she's lost it.
Matt, come on. I hate it when she does that.
I'm not sure that this joke's getting in 2025. Maybe it is. But we see the obvious target of the bet, one Kelly McGillis, who is playing Charlotte Blackwood, call sign Charlie. She is, we find out, a civilian contractor with the Navy. We'll talk about that when we get to her more official scene. But Maverick comes over. He grabs a microphone. I guess there's an open mic laying around somewhere. He grabs the microphone and walks over to her, and they do this little shtick and start to sing.
Excuse me, miss.
Hey. Don't worry, I'll take care of this.
You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips.
There's no tenderness like before in your fingertips.
You're trying hard not to show it, baby. But baby.
I mean, I kind of got to hand it to this movie. It pretty basically single-handedly reinvented the Righteous Brothers for a new generation. And that deal would be sealed in 1990 with Unchained Medley in Ghost. So he sits down and he has a conversation with her. She makes this statement that she doesn't date pilots. And then she's got somebody that she's going to meet. This person that she's meeting, by the way, is actually Pete Pettigrew. He is the Navy officer who was the technical consultant on the film. Maverick follows her into the bathroom. You know, I got to say, I'm going to say it right off the top. These two have, as far as I'm concerned, zero chemistry. I'm not buying this relationship like one little bit. There's real, and it's not that Tom Cruise can't have chemistry with women. He clearly can in plenty of his films. It's not like Kelly McGillis can't have chemistry in films. Anybody who saw Witness knows that she can. It's just that these two, for whatever reason, there's just no spark. There's nothing going on there. And so honestly, for me, I love this movie, but every minute that is these two alone is like kind of give me the fast forward button, because it doesn't do anything for me. Anyway, we're there the next morning, another briefing, and we find out that this girl that Maverick met in the bar is not who we think she
Civilians
is.
are here because they are our very best source of information on enemy aircraft. One of the most qualified is our tag rep, call sign Charlie. She has a PhD in astrophysics, and she's also a civilian contractor, so you do not salute her. But you better listen to her because the Pentagon listens to her about your proficiency. It's all yours, Charlie.
Thank you. Hello. We will be dealing with F5s and A4s.
Charlie is based on a real person. Her name is Christine Fox. She was, at the time, she was actually the person who did this job that Charlie is doing in this movie. She was a civilian contractor who worked at Miramar, who was all responsible for all kinds of analysis and that type of thing. She would go on to continue to rise up and would eventually become an acting deputy secretary of defense. As a result, she is the highest ranking woman in the history of the Defense Department. That's pretty cool. So Charlie starts to give a lecture on the MiG-28, which is a fictional plane, and what its strengths and weaknesses and stuff are. And Maverick kind of pushes back on her and is like, well, your information is wrong. And they start to have this little kind of argument to the point where Maverick is like, well, we saw one. We saw one do this dive that you're saying that it can't do. And he starts to tell the story about how, well, we were above it. How did you see it? We were inverted. And apparently the story has gotten around.
What were you doing there?
Communicating. Keeping up foreign relations. I was, giving him the bird.
The finger.
Yes, I know the finger, Goose.
I'm sorry. I hate it when it does that. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
So you're the one.
Yes, ma'am.
So now Charlie's interest is a little piqued because she really wants to know about the MiG, and she's also supposedly attracted to Maverick. So we have that going now, and it's time for a hop. So they're up there, they're flying around. So these shots are largely flown by naval aviators and some stunt pilots. One of the pilots that was used was Scott Altman, who was in the Navy at the time, but he would go on to become a NASA astronaut. He was the one who actually flew the upside down flipping the bird sequence at the beginning of the film. So most of this aerial stuff was filmed in Nevada over Fallon Naval Air Station, which is where the school is now. They don't fly anywhere near this low. I mean, and they said like the hard deck is 5,000 feet. You wouldn't be up in those mountains at 5,000 feet. You'd be way above them. But they don't fly anywhere near that low. They don't fly anywhere near that close to one another. This aerial combat maneuvers in the age of jets is like, these guys are like miles apart from each other. But they're making a movie and they got to make it look cool and they got to make it entertaining. And those scenes of F-14s flying through the mountains, that's pretty cool stuff. So they used a Learjet as a camera platform. They also had cameras that were specially designed for the movie The Final Countdown that were modified to fit in the F-14s, and they were used for some of the over-the-shoulder shots and some of the point-of-view shots. There was one fatality in shooting this movie. It was a stunt pilot by the name of Art Scholl, who was a very well-known stunt pilot. He was filming for the flat spin towards the end of the movie in his own plane. He had a biplane that he would put into these spins, and apparently at one of them he just lost control of it and was not able to recover. crashed into the Pacific Ocean. His body was never recovered. The plane was never recovered. And you'll see at the end, the movie is dedicated to Art Scholl. So Jester's up there, and Maverick and Goose chase him, and they chase him down below the hard deck, which is breaking the rules. And they're so excited about this that they do this stunt of buzzing the tower, which apparently is something that Maverick likes to do.
Tower, this is Ghost Rider requesting a flyby.
Negative, Ghost Rider. The pattern is full. No, ma'am. This is not a good idea.
Sorry, Goose, but it's time to buzz the tower.
And so they get back. They're all on the ground, and they get back into the locker room. Turns out Iceman and Hollywood beat Jester, but they're discounting that Maverick and Goose did it because he went below the hard deck. And then there's this other conflict between Iceman and Maverick.
You guys really are cowboys.
What's your problem, Kazansky?
You're everyone's problem. That's because every time you go up in the air, you're unsafe. I don't like you because you're dangerous.
That's right. Ice, man. I am dangerous.
So I'm going to say this right now. I think Iceman is really kind of low-key the hero of this movie. I mean, the guy's not wrong. The guy's not wrong at any point in the entire movie. Every time he calls Maverick out for something, he's correct. So let's talk about Iceman. Let's talk about Val Kilmer. We're doing this movie because of Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer, he grew up in Los Angeles. He apparently went to high school with Kevin Spacey and Mayor Winningham. He was friends with Kevin Spacey. He became the youngest person ever to be accepted to Juilliard in New York, their drama school. He did a lot of theater when he was younger. He turned down a role for Francis Ford Coppola in 1983 for The Outsiders because he had a theater commitment. He worked off-Broadway with Kevin Bacon, Sean Penn, Jackie Earle Haley. He did some commercials. He did an after-school special. In 1983, I think it was 1983. Yeah, 1983, the film was released in 1984. He got cast as the lead in Top Secret, which was a spy film spoof. Spoof films in the early 80s especially were very popular, including, the airplane movies, Top Secret. We talked about Hot Shots, which would come out after Top Gun, was a spoof of that. You had stuff like Scary Movie, Epic Movie, Naked Gun. All these spoof movies were just really, really a popular thing. And this was Abrams, Zucker, and Zucker, the same production team that did Airplane. And if you've never seen Top Secret, it's a lot of fun. It's like so goofy, so over the top. And Kilmer's great in it. The character that he played in Top Secret, Nick Rivers, is a singer, and Kilmer did all the singing in the movie. He then gets a lead in a film the next year, a film called Real Genius. And then he gets Top Gun. And then he would go on to do a bunch of other stuff. Most notably, he would play Mad Mardigan in Ron Howard's Willow in 1988, where he would meet Joanne Whaley, who he would wind up marrying. He did, he did Oliver Stone's The Doors movie, where he played Jim Morrison. He played Batman in Batman Forever, which we've done. He played with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat, Michael Mann's film. Thunderheart, The Saint, Doc Holliday in Tombstone. He voiced Moses in the animated film The Prince of Egypt, True Romance, and then, just dozens of other films up until and including Top Gun Maverick. He was known to be difficult. He was known to be a person who stayed in character on and off set. He was known to fight with directors a lot. But I think the proof is in the work. And there were actors that he worked with that had nothing but praise for him. So he didn't fight with everybody, but he apparently could be pretty difficult to work with. He developed throat cancer around 2014, 2015. Initially, he didn't want to particularly go for treatment because he was a Christian Scientist, but eventually, whatever the decision was made, and he went for chemo. He had an operation on his trachea. So he wound up working with a company in London called Synantic, and they were working on developing a audio deepfake, basically like a deepfake of his voice that could be used so that he could act and it would sound like him. But when it came to Maverick, they didn't use that. So the voice that you hear in Top Gun Maverick is actually his voice. It's altered a little bit to kind of clarify it, but it's really him talking. Kilmer sadly passed away April 1st of pneumonia, complications from all of his illnesses, and he will be missed because he was just a legend. So anyway, back to the movie. So Maverick and Goose get themselves another chewing out, this time at the hands of Viper.
Lieutenant Mitchell, Top Gun rules of engagement exist for your safety and for that of your team. They are not flexible, nor am I. Either obey them or you are history. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
And Goose he's rattled. He's kind of probably getting a little bit sick of Maverick's antics. Jester and Viper have this conversation where Jester is asked by Viper, would you fly with him? And he doesn't have an answer. He's like, I don't know. Obviously, people are recognizing his talent, but they're also recognizing that he's problematic. And Goose is probably at the end of his rope as well. They have this conversation, and Goose is like, look, I can't lose this. I need this. And Maverick is apologetic, but you kind of get the feeling that he's done this apology before.
Man, I know it's tough for you. I wouldn't let you in the academy because you're Duke Mitchell's kid. You have to live with that reputation. It's like every time we go up there, it's like you're flying against a ghost. Makes me nervous.
You're the only family I've got. I'm not gonna let you down.
And we also have this other reference to Maverick being Duke Mitchell's kid, whatever that means. We don't still know what the situation is with that. And now there's this scene in a classroom where Maverick and Slider are in there, and Charlie comes in, and it's really awkward where he's like trying to, I guess, ask her out, but she gives him a line about how she doesn't date students, but meanwhile she's passing him a note to meet him
You were
for dinner.
tempted to ask me out for dinner.
No.
No?
No. I don't date students.
So obviously she's trying to keep whatever relationship they're going to have on the down low, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But we need to go to probably the most talked about, referenced, discussed scene in the entire movie, which is this beach volleyball scene.
Come on, man. 47. Now we can get them. You guys are animals.
We have Goose and Mav and Slider and Ice playing beach volleyball. For some reason, everybody is shirtless except for Goose. I think we all know the reason why. Anthony Edwards is not in the shape that the other three guys are in. Maverick is wearing jeans, a watch, and aviator glasses while he's playing beach volleyball. Like, is he not worried about damaging any of that stuff or getting injured? Or, like, how's he running around in jeans? But anyway, there's been a lot of discussion over the past 40 years about how Top Gun has this homoerotic quality to it, how it's really a film about homosexuality. Quentin Tarantino does a cameo in the film Sleep With Me, where he basically breaks it down pretty well.
Maverick, all right? He's on the edge, man. He's right on the line, all right? And you got Iceman and all his crew. Right. They're gay. They represent the gay man, all right? And they're saying, go the gay way, go the gay way.
What about Kelly McGillis? Right?
Kelly McGillis, she's heterosexuality. She's saying, no, go the normal way. Play by the rules, go the normal way. And they're saying, no, go the gay way. Be the gay way. Go for the gay way. All right, that is what's going on throughout that whole movie.
All of that comes from this scene. I mean, there's other moments of it, but that whole idea that this is really some way of Maverick expressing like this metaphor for coming out and exploring homosexuality all boils down to this scene right here. Take that as you will. I'm just wondering how he's playing volleyball in those jeans and like how rank his lower half is by the time he gets over to Charlie's house, which is probably why he wants to take a shower. Which leads us to one of the other most awkward scenes in the entire movie, which is this dinner scene with Charlie. And I will just reiterate that Kelly McGillis and Tom Cruise have zero chemistry in this movie, and this scene is just something that points that out. It's so awkward and so weird, and that he shows up at her house and he's like, yeah, I'm going to take a shower. Like, in her house? Is that his thought? Like, yeah, I know you barely know me. We're having our first dinner, but first I'm going to go and get naked in your bathroom and while you cook dinner. I mean, I don't even understand like where his logic is. He's already late. Swing by the locker room where nobody obviously is because they're all out on the beach. Go by the locker room, rinse off, and then be 10 minutes later than you already are. The good thing I will say about the scene, though, is we do get a little more depth on him telling kind of what he knows about his father.
Well, that's a big mystery. He disappeared in an F4, November 5th, 1965. The stink of it was he screwed up. No way. My old man was a great fighter pilot.
And Charlie, continues to call him out for the way that he is, and she's kind of wondering if this is a result of what happened with his father that's kind of leading him to be the way that he is. And she throws it right out there. She's like, is that why you're always second best?
Is that why you're always second best up there?
You are direct, aren't you?
So the dinner scene finishes. He leaves to go take a shower. And we catch up with them the next day in an elevator. And there's this tension again between the two of them. So this scene, let me back up. So they had finished shooting the film. They were editing the film together. And I guess they kind of realized that they need a little more between Charlie and Maverick, that they don't have enough. This film has two credited editors, Chris Lebenson and Billy Weber. Chris Lebenson would go on to work with Tony Scott quite a bit, actually. He would basically be Tony Scott's editor going forward. He did this film. He did Beverly Hills Cop 2, Last Boy Scout, Crimson Tide, Enemy of the State, Unstoppable, Deja Vu, Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3. He basically did all of Tony Scott's films, but he also worked with Michael Bay and Tim Burton. So he very much has a style. But in any case, so this film is in the edit, and they're looking at this thing, and they're going, all right, well, we need something more for this. Like, we have not developed this story enough. Go figure. And so they decide they're going to do some reshoots that they can do with Charlie and Maverick. The problem is that, this is months after filming has ended, and these actors have moved on. Kelly McGillis is filming an Israeli film called The Dreamers, which is also in English, it's also known as Unsettled Land, and her character has like dark brown reddish hair, And Tom Cruise is out with Martin Scorsese doing Color of Money, and his character has long hair, which is why in this elevator scene you've got Charlie wearing a hat. I think she's also put on some weight for the role, and so that's why she's in the jacket. But you got Charlie wearing the hat, and you've got Maverick with his hair slicked back and the towel around his neck. It's to kind of hide the fact that they look really pretty different than they looked when they were filming Top Gun. So that's the elevator scene, and then they would also do the love scene, the blue light love scene that we'll come to in a little bit. That was also a reshoot. Originally, there was not going to be a love scene in the movie, and they decided that they needed one, so they did that in reshoots. So we have the elevator scene, and then we're at the airport, and we are picking up Goose's wife, Carol, played by the delightful Meg Ryan. This is only Meg Ryan's third film, and she would go on, obviously, to have a great, great career. She would marry Dennis Quaid. Her son is Jack Quaid, who's a pretty well-known actor. So she's had a pretty decent career, and this is probably the first big film that anybody's seen her in, and she is absolutely lovely in this film. We'll get back to her in a minute. We have this another classroom scene now where, again, Charlie's kind of coming at Maverick. They get into a fight kind of in this scene, and then she walks away, and she's trying to find Maverick to explain something to him, and he's all mad at her, and there's this motorcycle car chase through the streets of the town, and finally gets pulled over, and they kind of have it out, but she kind of confesses that she's really fallen for him.
And you think I'm reckless? When I fly, I'll have you know that my crew and my plane come first.
Well, I'm going to finish my sentence, Lieutenant. My review of your flight performance was right on.
Is that right?
That is right.
But I held something back. I see some real genius in your flying, Maverick, but I can't say that in there. I was afraid that everyone in that tax trailer would see right through me. And I just don't want anyone to know that I've fallen for you.
And we have the aforementioned love scene, blue lighting, reshoot, one of the unsexiest love scenes of the 80s. Now we have another hop, and this time not only do they have Jester, but they also have Viper to contend with. And Maverick gets so obsessed with going after Viper and beating him that he leaves his wingman again and goes off after Viper and is about to have him, but all of a sudden, Jester's behind him.
Goose, check our tail. There's Chester.
Bingo, Maverick's dead. You're out of there, kid.
Defense Department regrets to inform you that your sons are dead because they were stupid. Great balls of fire.
You gotta really love Goose here. But again, Maverick hasn't really learned anything. And we're back in the locker room where apparently these guys spend a lot of time, and we have this other conversation with Maverick and Iceman. And Iceman, again, he's right. He's 100% right in everything that he says in this movie. And he is completely right this time, where he's just laying it out for Maverick.
Maverick, it's not your flying. It's your attitude. The enemy's dangerous. But right now, you're worse than the enemy. You're dangerous and foolish. You may not like the guys flying with you. They may not like you. Well, whose side are you on?
And I don't even think it's to the point where Iceman dislikes Maverick. I think he just kind of dislikes who he is, and the fact that he is, in his viewpoint, wasting his talent as a pilot on chasing whatever it is he's chasing. And I think, Iceman doesn't know, obviously, what the complete situation is. So maybe he just thinks it's ego or whatever that's going on with Maverick. And Maverick, obviously, we know that Maverick is chasing his own demons. But I got to give it to Iceman, and I got to give it to Val Kilmer, as he is just really bringing it. And really, maybe it's because I'm older, but I'm really seeing Iceman's side in this whole thing. We have another confrontation with, Goose and Maverick's like, I know better. I know I shouldn't be doing this. Making another promise to Goose that he's probably not going to keep. Now we have this bar scene where they're apparently on a double date. I guess Charlie's not keeping it on the down low anymore because they're in the bar where all the pilots are hanging out and they're clearly together. But there's this, you have this conversation with Charlie and Carol where Carol's like, he's clearly in love with you. And of course we get the iconic "take me to bed or lose me forever" line.
A fool. A boy is off the market. He is 100% prime time in love with you. Hey, Goose, you big stud!
That's me, honey.
Take me to bed or lose me forever.
Show me the way home, honey.
And now we come to the crux of the movie, Hop 31. So we're probably 2 weeks into this, and they all go up, and Maverick is flying behind Iceman. Iceman's trying to get a bead on, I think it's Jester, right? And he won't get out of the way. He doesn't quite have it. Maverick's set up behind him. Maverick's like, get out of the way. Iceman finally moves off and throws the jet wash into Maverick's plane, and Maverick's plane goes into a flat spin, which apparently this is something that actually could very well happen on an F-14A model. Apparently they fixed the later models, but these planes are the early version of it, and this was something that they were susceptible to, was airflow disturbances coming into the engine intake, and that's what happened. They had this flame out. They're in a flat spin, which basically means they're falling straight down, and the plane is spinning.
And move it in. I've got the shot. Come on, Mav. Let's get in there. Come on, Mav. Maverick's getting impatient. Come on, take the shot. 10 more seconds, then I've got him. Come on, Ice. Get the hell out of there. Let's do it, Mav.
Ice, come off high right. I'm in.
5 more seconds. Come off high right, Ice. I'm in. I'm off.
So the other thing that apparently was modified in the later models of the F-14 is this ejection handle. In the later planes, it's down below the pilot in between their legs, but in this model, it's up over their heads, which you see Goose struggling with, and he's supposed to blow the canopy. The canopy's supposed to blow, and then they eject, but the problem is this plane's not moving forward. So if you're moving forward, the canopy is going to blow off and be behind the plane, and then the pilot eject. In this situation, the plane is basically falling straight down, so the canopy doesn't go behind it. It goes straight up, and then they eject into the canopy, and that's what happens to Goose. Goose, smashes into the canopy and then falls into the water. Goose is dead. Now we have to deal with this other thing that's getting put on Maverick, the fact that he's lost his best friend, really his only family, as he says, and that he feels responsible for it. Even though the Navy clears him, they have a hearing, they say it's not his responsibility, he couldn't have foreseen it, he could not have recovered it, so they put him back on flight status, and Viper tells Jester to get him up as soon as he can. They have this meeting at one point where Jester comes to Maverick and tries to basically give him some fatherly advice.
My squad in Vietnam, we lost 8 of 18 aircraft. 10 men. First one dies, you die too. But there will be others. You can count on it. You gotta let them go. Gotta let him go.
There's a scene with Carol and Maverick in the ready room. Maverick walks in and Carol's there, and Tom Cruise is doing the craziest cry acting I think he's ever done in a movie. It looks like his eyes are about to explode out of his head. And Carol goes from grieving herself to kind of comforting Maverick, but she's also kind of bringing some truth down to Maverick and is like, look, you got to go. You got to move on. And if the situation had been reversed, Goose would have gone on without you.
God, he loved flying with you, Maverick. flown anyway. Without you. He'd have hated it, but he would have done it.
So Carol leaves, and we don't see her again. And unfortunately, we don't see her in the sequel either. He goes back up on another hop, and he won't engage. So he's flying with Sundown. This is Clarence Gilliard, and this was his first film. He did a lot of TV guest star appearances in late 70s, early 80s. He was in the last season of Chips as one of kind of the replacement officers. Dare I say the token black officer. And in those days when Michael Dorn left, he was replaced by Clarence Gilliard. He would go on to be obviously in Die Hard, Matlock, the TV series, Walker, Texas Ranger, the Chuck Norris series, the unfortunate Kirk Cameron Left Behind movies. But he is Maverick's backseat in this movie. I don't know what he's been doing for the last 2 weeks, who he's been flying with, but he's available, and they put him in, and he's giving Maverick a hard time about taking a shot, and Maverick won't engage. He's like, no, it's no
Hey,
good.
where the hell are you going?
It's not good. It doesn't look good.
What do you mean it doesn't look good? It doesn't get to look any better than that.
They get in a little bit of an argument when Maverick lands, and Maverick's like, I'm the one who decides when to shoot. You have another locker room scene with Iceman and Maverick. You could tell that Ice wants to say something, but he really can't find anything to say.
I'm sorry about Goose. Everybody liked him. I'm sorry.
Then we're back at the bar. Maverick's sitting at the bar, drinking water. Charlie comes into him. Apparently, Maverick's thinking about leaving. Charlie kind of gently goads him about, like, I would have said goodbye. I wouldn't have left without saying goodbye because she's leaving also because she got a new job. And Maverick is kind of cruddy to her. She's like, I'm just here to help, and he's just not having it.
I'm here to help.
Look, thank you. If I wanted help, really, I would have asked for it.
So I'm too late. You've already left. You didn't learn a damn thing, did you? Except to quit. You've got that maneuver down real well.
So Maverick goes to see Viper at home, and I really like this scene. Tom Skerritt's so good in this scene. He's got to ride that line between being a friend, knowing that Maverick lost his father early, and kind of being a father figure, but also being a little stern and just kind of putting him where he needs to be. And he decides that he is going to let Maverick know the real story about what happened with his father. And so we get to hear the real story about what happened with his father.
What I'm about to tell you is classified. It could end my career. We were in the worst dogfight I ever dreamed of. There were bogeys like fireflies all over the sky. His F-4 was hit. He was wounded, but he could have made it back. He stayed in it, saved 3 planes before he bought it.
How come I never heard that before?
Well, that's not something the State Department tells dependents when the battle occurred over the wrong line.
We find out that his father was really a great pilot, that his father had been shot down over the wrong line in a map, probably over Laos or Cambodia, and had saved other pilots before he went in. But the Defense Department couldn't tell anybody that because of where the battle happened. And they basically just let it out there that he was shot down and that there was some stigma attached to it. And Maverick finally kind of has that piece that he's been missing where it was my father really a failure. It's a movie trope that like, if you're a great pilot, then your offspring is also going to be a great pilot. Or if your father was a great pilot, you're going to be a great pilot. And so hearing that his father was, in fact, a great pilot, in fact, saved lives, in fact, did everything right, kind of fills a little piece that I guess he was missing. At the end of the day, it's a really good scene. And then, Viper tells him, look, you got enough points to graduate. You can graduate or you can quit. It's up to you. We move on to the graduation. Everybody's there but Maverick. Maverick does show up at the end. I guess he decides he's staying in. And Viper shows up with orders for everybody. And he's like, you got to go out to your ship. There's a situation going on. They need you out there. And they get their orders. And Viper gives Maverick, one last thing where he's like, I'll fly with you if there's no one out there to fly with you.
I hate to break up the party before it really gets out of hand, but there is work to be done. Some of you have to depart immediately. We have a crisis situation.
Ice, Slider. Yo. Hollywood, Wolfman.
Yes, sir.
Maverick.
Sir.
Maverick, you'll get your Rio when you get to your ship. And if you don't, give me a call. I'll fly with you.
So we're back on the Enterprise. We're back with Stinger. And they have a briefing, and there's a disabled ship, and they're going to provide air cover. It's in hostile territory. So Maverick is on the Ready 5, which means that he doesn't go up in the air. He is on standby in case something happens. He has got Merlin with him, who is Tim Robbins, who is Cougar's Rio, who's now flying with Maverick. Iceman comes to Stinger and has reservations about Maverick being his backup.
Ice.
Yes, sir.
Hollywood.
Yes.
Sector 2. Maverick, you back him up with Merlin on Ready 5.
Yes, sir.
Rise!
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
This is not personal, but with regard to Maverick, is he the best
I know it's on your mind, Kazansky. Just get on it.
And off we go into this final act. So we have Ice and Slider, we have Wolfman and Hollywood. They are facing a couple of bogeys that are coming at them. They're closing, and all of a sudden, no, it's not 2, it's 4. Oh wait, no, it's 5. They want to launch Maverick, but the catapults are broken for some reason. USS Enterprise has 4 catapults, but none of them can launch the bird at this point. But Maverick finally launches. He gets out there. We have this aerial battle. It's a really well done and well edited sequence. Maverick won't engage. He's holding back. Merlin's trying to tell him to get in there.
Okay, let's get in there. Well, we gotta help Ice. Come on, let's get back and engage, Maverick. Come on.
It's no good.
Get in there, Maverick.
It's no good.
Ice is yelling at him to get in there. And then all of a sudden, Maverick comes to his senses, and boom, he's back into it.
Last down there alone. Get in the fight, for Christ's sake. Maverick! Maverick!
Maverick's re-engaging, sir.
I can't get him off my tail.
Ice, I've got your big dead ahead. I've got him dead ahead.
So they chase around. There's some more shooting. Planes are going around. They're going down. There's a guy behind Maverick, and Maverick's bringing him in.
You haven't lost him. He's still with us. What are you doing? You're slowing down. You're slowing down.
I'm bringing him in closer, Merlin.
You're gonna do what? This is it, Maverick.
I'm gonna hit the brakes. He'll fly right by.
He's gonna get a lock on us.
And he tells Merlin he's going to put on the brakes and let him fly by. So obviously this works perfectly. Maverick shoots down that plane. The other MiGs bug out. They're going home. So now we're going to see Maverick, and Maverick is once again wanting to fly by. So we see the same pattern going on of him requesting a flyby, getting denied the flyby. Now Merlin's kind of like, what's going on?
Mustang, this is Maverick requesting flyby.
Negative, Ghost Rider. The pattern is full.
Excuse me, something I should know about?
So, just something that occurred to me in watching this time is that when Maverick goes to do the flyby, Iceman goes with him. I think this is actually kind of important. It's a piece of character development for Iceman, because this is Mr. I go by the rules work for me, so I work within the rules, and I'm cold as ice. I don't let emotion get a hold of my flying, all that stuff going on. But when it comes down to it, he bends a little bit and kind of goes overboard with Maverick and does this reckless stunt of the flyby of the tower. And I think that's really just kind of indicative that maybe not only is Iceman rubbing off on Maverick a little bit, but maybe Maverick's rubbing off on Iceman a little bit. And I think that's kind of the crack that maybe starts this friendship that they are going to have going forward, that we see come to fruition in Top Gun Maverick. But we're back on the deck. Guys are getting out of the planes. The rescue helicopter comes with Hollywood and Wolfman because they had gotten shot down. So everybody's there, and you have this, required congratulations thing where everybody's kind of gathered around them on the deck, and you have this final exchange with Iceman and Maverick.
You are still dangerous. You can be my wingman anytime.
You can be mine.
So we're back down, everything's kind of calmed down a little bit, and Stinger comes to talk to Maverick and let him know that basically the Navy has decided that Maverick can go wherever he wants. He's got his choice of
be on the
duty.
front page of every newspaper in the English-speaking world. Even though the other side denies the incident, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
They gave you your choice of duty, son. Anything, anywhere. Do you believe that? Where do you think you want to go?
I thought of being an instructor, sir.
Top Gun?
Yes, sir.
God help us.
So Maverick's back at the bar in Miramar. He's sitting at the bar, and he hears...
You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips.
the song "You've Lost That Loving Feeling" come on, and he walks back, and there's nobody in the room where the jukebox is. He's looking at the jukebox, and then he turns around, and Charlie's there, and there we have it. That is the end of Top Gun. $15 million budget. This film made $8.2 million on opening weekend, made $176.8 million domestically, $177 million internationally, for a total of $353.8 million on a budget of 15. So I'd say this film was quite the success, and that's just theatrical. That does not count all the merchandising. I mean, Top Gun stuff was everywhere. There were T-shirts and hats and lunchboxes and all kinds of stuff. You could buy those jackets with all the patches on them. It was just crazy. Model airplanes. It was just crazy how much stuff was out there in terms of merchandising. And then obviously there was home release. It was on VHS. It was on DVD. I mean, this thing was everywhere. It was always being shown on TV. It was always being shown on cable. It was re-released. It was remastered for IMAX and released in 2013, and then it had a re-release in 2021 in the lead up to Top Gun Maverick. It's got a 59 on Rotten Tomatoes. Guys, that's harsh. That is very harsh for this film. It's got an 83 audience score. It's got a 50 on Metacritic and an A on CinemaScore. So obviously, audiences like this film a lot better than critics do, because critics are just going to be doing what they do. Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 stars. I actually really like his review. He said movies like Top Gun are hard to review because the good parts are so good and the bad parts are so relentless. The dogfights are absolutely the best since Clint Eastwood's electrifying aerial scenes in Firefox, but look out for the scenes where people talk to one another. And I'd say that's pretty on the nose, Raj. Good job. Gene Siskel gave it 3 stars. He really, really disliked the romantic scenes. He thought it was like kind of like teen drama stuff instead of, he would have liked to have seen a weightier romance, like something An Officer and a Gentleman, which I agree with you 100%, Gene. Good job, guys. Pauline Kael, who was a film critic for The New Yorker, was well known for being fairly acerbic in some of her reviews, especially when she did not like a movie. In her book, 5001 Nights at the Movies, she said, when McGillis is off screen, the movie is a shiny homoerotic commercial. The pilots strut around the locker room, towels hanging precariously from their waists. It's as if masculinity had been redefined as how a young man looks with his clothes half off, as if narcissism is what being a warrior is all about. So I think Pauline did not like this movie very much. So it got Academy Award nominations for editing, original song, sound, and sound effects. It won original song, Take My Breath Away. It lost editing and sound to Platoon, and it lost sound effects to Aliens. I don't know that I could really argue with any of that except maybe editing. I think I would give this probably a little more weight in terms of editing goes. I'll give you an example. So the sequence at the end of the movie, well, towards the end of the movie, where Maverick goes up with Sundown and refuses to engage, that film, that was largely created in editing. They had basically decided that they needed a little more drama and a little more, like another beat of Maverick being resistant. So that was largely assembled in the edit with ADR, with Tom Cruise coming in and just reading lines because his face is covered. And so they completely expanded and changed what that scene was all about based on editing. And looking at some of the dogfights and stuff, like that last dogfight was so good and so exciting. Platoon's great. We did Platoon on this channel. Check out the episode that we did on Platoon. But I don't know, man. I would have voted for Top Gun. So this film was like huge in the zeitgeist. There was a video game that came out. Actually, there was a couple of video games that came out. In no small part, a series like Jag probably got greenlit because of the interest in Navy aviation that this film generated. And, you know, the main character in Jag, Harmon Rabb, was not only a lawyer, but he was also a fighter pilot. So, you know, they had to kind of throw this together. Obviously, Top Gun Maverick was an immense success. It made $1.5 billion, got nominated for Best Picture. There is another sequel in development right now called Top Gun Rooster, which is about Bradley. We have that to look forward to. So, guys, that is Top Gun. And thank you for coming along on this ride. I know it was a long one, but I really appreciate it. And check us out. I'm going to be doing a series on Superman. We've already done Superman the movie. I'm going to be looking at Superman 2, the Donner Cut, and I'm going to be looking at Superman Returns in the lead up to Superman being released in theaters this July. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. I got a couple other things in the hopper, and obviously Randall and I are going to be talking a lot about that stuff as well as other things going on. So thanks for coming along, and we will catch you next time.